When I started my game development journey, this was my first commercial project. A simple pixel art game, and people loved it. But then, I got ambitious and decided to make an entire 3D game all by myself. To make things more difficult, I also made the decision to not use any assets from the Unity Asset Store or anywhere else. This led to a 5-year-long video game project that from the perspective of many looked worse in comparison to my first game. But the even worse part was that on the last year of development, I kinda had to replace a lot of assets with store assets because my own looked really bad. Which is the worst thing you can do because the whole point of the asset store is to save time. But I didn't save any time. I spent a lot of time making the assets myself and then replaced them with other assets. In conclusion, I should have never done this project this way. And now that it's over, I feel like I've been freed from a prison. This isn't how you're supposed to feel when you make a video game. But now my next project is going back to being pixel art. But there's a twist, and that is the fact that I'm making the terrain 3D with 2D sprites placed on top of it. Making a pixel art game is 10 times easier than making a 3D game. Pixels are easy to control. You can't go wrong with pixels. Your pixel art either looks great or decent. There is no bad pixel art. And if you decide to make a pixel art game, there are maybe 5 things that can go wrong. But with 3D, there are like 15 things that could go wrong. And when you choose pixel art, people's expectations are more grounded compared to what the expectations are in 3D. Unless you go with some low poly style which you may not want to go with. For example, in a 3D game, expectations for environmental design is higher, expectations for animation quality is higher, and expectations for this kind of stuff is higher. And then there is also the UI. The user interface of my first game looks way better in comparison to the UI in my 3D game. Making good user interface needs its own talent. But when you're making pixel art, it is as if you're using the same talent that you use for making pixel art assets. I also want to talk about talent for one brief moment. A lot of people believe that you need to have talent in order to do something. That's wrong. The truth is that if you are talented in a field, that means that compared to others, you have a starting advantage. But if you don't have this advantage, you can still do it. Especially if you have to. Let me explain. I was talented in pixel art and programming, but I was not talented in music or anything related to sound. For me, pixels are easy to understand, but waves are not. For you, it might be the other way around. Or maybe you don't have talent for either of them, but instead you have twice the talent for programming. Point is that if you have started doing game development, that means you have some talent in one or more of these fields. But to make a game all by yourself, you have to force yourself to learn things that you don't like. For me, it was sound design. I learned music and sound reluctantly. And even to this day, I'm still not good at it. But I had to learn it. Because a lot of royalty-free sound effects and soundtracks out there did not fit my game. I learned it because I had no other choice. And not having a choice is a great substitute for lack of talent. And if you're someone who has no talent in art, well, you might find that pixel art is still easier to learn compared to other types of art. Not to mention that you don't really need any tools in order to draw in pixel art, and also some of the software is cheaper too. Another reason why I went back to pixel art is because I want to focus on aesthetics and not graphics. When you're working on a 3D game, you tell yourself that you will prioritize art style over graphics. But once you actually start working on it, you kind of feel yourself getting dragged towards graphics. And between me and you, I kinda hate graphics. I don't want to spend any time on it because it's meaningless.
Graphics are sprinkles on a cupcake. They might make you want to buy the cupcake, but they don't really make it taste that much better. And you don't buy a cupcake because of the sprinkles either.
I think that covers most of it. There are plenty of other reasons to why I prefer pixel art, such as better performance, smaller build size, lower chance of asset flip accusation, and the fact that it simply just looks good.